A leading conservative political activist, Candace Owens, has called Floyd a horrible human being on Facebook. Her video has had more than 85 million views at the time of recording. In the video, she argues that Floyd was a career criminal who shouldn't be made into a black hero or a martyr. She also says the notion of widespread racist police brutality is a myth. We have law professor Titus Nichols. Titus, we've heard from Brandon that she's a genuine person. She genuinely cares about the African-American community and that she's just trying to steer them in the correct direction. What do you make of her?
Well, I can't speak to her personal motivations because I've never met Candace Owens before. But what I can say as far as the product that she's putting out or what she's trying to sell, if she's trying to sell the idea that black people are better served by the Republican Party, she's doing a bad job at selling it. You can focus all day by saying, well, only X number of people were killed by police in this year, or statistics say that, but you're ignoring the context of what's going on in the world and specifically what's going on in the country. If you're going to have a conversation about what political party black people should follow, then that's a conversation worth having. But simply saying by creating terms like Blexit, which is based upon the very controversial term of a Brexit, which that in itself is based on xenophobia and anti-immigration, you're not doing a good job as of showing why the other side is better than what's going on right now.
And we are going to get into the statistics that were presented in her video.
Every year, police in the United States shoot dead almost exactly 1,000 people. Each incident is recorded by the Washington Post, which began its database in 2015, the last full year of Barack Obama's presidency. The leaders changed, but the numbers are remarkably consistent. Last year, as always, the vast majority of people shot dead by police were men. 40% were white, 24% were black, a statistic jumped on by conservative commentators.
More white suspects were killed.
But that's not the full story. There are, of course, far more white people in America, and taking that into account, African Americans are 2.5 times more likely to be shot dead by police.
Candace Owens is arguing that she's trying to straighten out a narrative that has been subverted for political purposes. What does that mean?
I feel that Candace's position is, quite frankly, disrespectful to George Floyd as a human being, and it just shows that her routine is just to be as incendiary as possible. I'm a former prosecutor. I've prosecuted murderers, gang members, bank robbers, child molesters, every horrible crime you could think of. And every time I had a defendant, I still recognized their humanity. I recognized that they were entitled to the same rights and treatment as anybody else. And just because they have a criminal record, just because they've been accused of a horrible crime does not mean that you do not treat them with the same basic humanity that you treat anybody else. George Floyd is being recognized because his humanity was not recognized by the police officer.
Candace Owens disputes even this.
It doesn't matter what percentage of the population you represent, it matters what percentage of the violent criminal community you represent. And unfortunately, black community commits a disproportionate amount of crimes compared to the white community.
Now back to the data. Of the 1,003 people shot dead by police last year, 95% were armed, typically with a gun. Just 5%, 55 people, were unarmed. Nearly half, 25, were white. 14 were black. To be clear then, a total of 14 unarmed black people were shot dead by police last year. In most cases, officers were not charged because the suspect was either trying to flee or attack them. But in 2 cases, officers were charged for the killing of Atatiana Jefferson and separately Gregory Griffin.
It doesn't always rise to the level of a fatal shooting, but other activists I've spoken to in preparation for this show say, look, it's just the tip of the iceberg. It's a daily thing. It's a daily struggle. Can you explain that?
And that's why I believe the question of, is there rampant racism within police? I just don't think that's a succinct or a good enough question, because to ask that, it puts the focus solely on the police force and not looking at the broader criminal justice system. There are systemic flaws throughout the entirety of the criminal justice system. If you look at here in Georgia, the situation with Ahmaud Arbery, where it took 2 months to arrest his murderers. That wasn't because the police officers didn't do their job. It's because the prosecutors refused to do their job and tried to cover for the killers. And so this issue you see is bigger than just law enforcement. It goes into who gets arrested, what is charged, as Reddit previously stated, the inconsistency between being charged with crack cocaine versus powder cocaine goes well beyond law enforcement. That goes into the prosecutors, the judges, and the legislators that create the laws. So you see this continuum of discrimination and who it mostly affects. That's where you have to look at. And if Candace Owens was truly focused on so-called delivering black people to the other side, she would focus on that as opposed to narrowing down on the small statistics of saying, oh, well, more white people are killed. Here's a novel, crazy idea. How about law enforcement not kill any unarmed citizen, whether it's black or white? If that's accomplished, you're going to see better results across the board.
Just because you're unarmed doesn't mean that you're not a deadly threat. So when you look at the use of force continuum, that's not possible. But let's look at two people real quick, and we'll talk about the criminal justice system. When you talk about criminal justice system, you have to be specific. The people that I've seen that I've arrested, they don't have any more injustice than I've seen amongst other people who are white. My cousin, for a perfect example, he got 70 years in prison. He was a convicted felon. He was a prohibited possessor. He shot 3 people. He's only going to do 15 years in prison. He's eligible for parole. My uncle did 40 years federal time because he was selling dope for multiple years, and now he's only going to do 15 because of the First Step Act. So it's not this pervasive injustice through racism. I don't believe in that. And if we can have a conversation about what judge is a racist, let's point that judge out, get him out of there, and then we can see some changes.